Good evening, guys. I am Dr. Harmeet Singh, organizing chairman of this trauma series 2021. Today, with us, we have Dr. Pallavi Sehgal, who is attending consultant in emergency medicine at Max Vishali. She is going to talk on trauma in pregnancy. This is very important topic. I would request you all be there, tune there, and whatever the question you are having, please drop in the message box. Thank you.
Hi, good evening, everybody. Welcome to the trauma series. I am Dr. Pallavi, attending consultant Max Hospital, Vaishali. So, you guys have been reading or listening to various series which we're talking about, starting from head injury, including the blunt abdominal trauma, chest traumas, extremities. So you have almost covered all the basic trauma management if you have attended previous classes. If not, then you should go back and look at all the other classes that we have covered previously. Today, we're going to talk about the special population, which include pregnancy, that is a pregnant female who has alleged history of trauma. So we're going to talk about basic key points regarding the trauma in pregnancy. Trauma in pregnancy basically means trauma for two. Two here means one is the mother. We are dealing with two patients here. One is the mother and another is a fetus. So definitely we have a bigger dilemma and we have to manage the situation very quickly and promptly. So we're going to cover basic things in this presentation. First is the introduction to the trauma in pregnancy, then the anatomical and physiological changes in pregnancy and how they affect the basic management of trauma, assessment and the treatment, and the perimortem cesarean section. So we're going to cover the little basics of all the topics. So, talking about that, there are various physiological and anatomical changes which actually influence the evaluation of an injured pregnant patient. For a pregnant patient, there are many physiological and anatomical changes which are different from a non pregnant female. But we have to understand here that we are dealing with two patients, that is, mother and the fetus. But if you have already covered and listened to the lectures talking about the management of a trauma patient, and don't be worried, there are only few key points that you need to keep in mind, although the initial management remains the same as in a non-pregnant patient. So the optimal resuscitation of the mother is a priority, as it serves as the best initial treatment for the baby. So you have to remember that there should be quick and fast resuscitation of the mother, so it would also affect the baby. So, but always keep in mind, any young female presenting to your department or to your workplace with a history of trauma, always suspect, if the female is in a reproductive age group, that she is pregnant until proven otherwise. So there are various anatomical changes that occur in a pregnant female, which somehow correlates with the trauma and the organs which are affected. So as the uterus enlarges, while the female goes down the trimesters, the bowel is pushed in a cephalad direction so that it lies mostly in the upper abdomen. So why is it significant in a trauma? Because the bowel is somewhere protected in a blunt abdominal trauma patient, but uterus is at more risk. And in a penetrating trauma to the upper abdomen region during the last trimester, basically it can result in an intestinal injury because of the cephalad displacement. So this is how you have to correlate the anatomical change along with the pregnant trauma patient. In vertex position, the fetal head is in the pelvis. So in late trimesters, pelvic fractures can result in serious intracranial injuries and skull fractures for the fetus, as depicted in the picture shown. There are various lab values in a pregnant as well as in a non-pregnant females, which are shown as a comparison in a table. So we see that hematocrit for a non-pregnant female is between 35 to 45, and for a pregnant it is 32 to 42. The WBCs are raised, that it could be up to 12,000, and in a non-pregnant it is 4,000 to 10,000, which is a normal value which is depicted mostly in the labs. It is up to 10,000. So there are slight increase in the WBC count in a pregnant female, which is normal physiological change of the body. The pH will lie between 7.4 to 7.45, and it will be normal for a non-pregnant female. There will be a PaCO2 levels of 25 to 30. I'm going to talk about why is there a significance of CO2 levels. And in a non-pregnant female, it is 30 to 40 millimeters of mercury. Fibrinogen levels are high in a pregnant female in comparison to a non-pregnant female, which is again a physiological change, and to adapt the body for pregnancy and for the fetal well-being. Various physiological changes in pregnancy. Heart rate gradually increases to maximum of 10 to 15 beats per minute over baseline by third trimester. So how is this relevant? If a patient presents to you with trauma in third trimester, the heart rate will itself be higher, and so it should not be mistaken that it is tachycardia due to pregnancy, because it would be again in a trauma patient. Tachycardia is one of the most important signs. So you don't have to mislead yourself that it is normal for a pregnant female. Go back to your basics of trauma. Any tachycardia, a trauma patient, a sick patient, you should suspect any hemorrhagic blood loss. Blood pressure falls by 5 to 15 millimeters of mercury in systolic and diastolic levels during the second trimester, but it comes down to normal during the third trimester. On ECGs, it is very important that inverted and flat T waves in lead 3, AVF, and precordial leads, it is normal for a pregnant female. So you don't have to worry about these changes in ECG. Otherwise, any other changes apart from this or any symptomatic patient and some STT changes on ECG are definitely significant. So hypocapnia, which is CO2 levels of 30 millimeter on mercury, is common in late pregnancy. PSCO2 of 35 to 45 may indicate impending respiratory failure due to pregnancy. So it should be kept in mind that levels range from 30 to 40. Mistaking eclampsia for head injury. So if you are in confusion, you're not able to understand, you can get a CT head to rule out an intracranial bleeding, because it is always a protocol in trauma that the investigation should not be delayed thinking that a female is pregnant, so we cannot go ahead with these investigations, because the benefits to the mother outweighs the risks to the fetus. So if it is a life-threatening situation, you should not be worried about any radiological investigation. So starting with the assessment and the management, to optimize outcomes for both mother and fetus, we must resuscitate the mother first and then the fetus before conducting the secondary survey for the mother. And then you go ahead with the basic trauma management, that is a primary survey, which includes your airway, breathing, airway spine stabilization, plus breathing, plus circulation, disability, exposures, your adjuncts to primary survey, and your secondary survey. So it is almost like any other trauma patient. Either the patient presents with blunt abdominal trauma, head injury, chest injury, just a little bit changes here and there. In the primary survey, it is similar as you go ahead in your trauma protocols. That is, we follow our ABCDEs along with C-spine stabilization. And you have to ensure a patent airway with adequate ventilation, uterine compression vena cava. So you have to understand that because of compression of the inferior vena cava, there could be hypotension. So you have to manually displace the uterus to the left side to relieve the pressures on IVC. And if patient requires spine board for immobilization in a suspected spine injury or any fall from height, you have to definitely put the patient on a spine board, but you should tilt it a little to the left for 15 to 30 degrees to decrease the pressures on the IVC. So this is how you do it. Left lateral tilt using a firm wedge to support pelvis and thorax. And you can also do the left uterine displacement, patient's left side, using the two-hand technique. And you can also go ahead with a one-hand technique. This is to reduce the pressures on IVC. Due to increased intravascular volume, pregnant patients can lose a significant amount of blood before any change in vitals. This should be kept in mind, such as tachycardia, hypotension. Thus, there can be hypoperfusion of the fetus and placenta. You have to go ahead with your basic protocol of trauma management, that is your fluid resuscitation along with blood products transfusion. One thing to keep in mind is vasopressors should be avoided, as it can lead to reduced uterine flow, thus causing fetal hypoxia. So vasopressors should not be used. Going ahead with one of the most important topics in pregnancy in a trauma patient, that is abruptio placenta. Abruptio placenta is an accidental hemorrhage, and the patient could present with vaginal bleeding. In 70% of the cases, the patient presents with vaginal bleeding. And in 70% of the cases there is vaginal bleeding along with uterine tenderness. There are frequent uterine contractions. In 30% of the abruptio placenta patients following the trauma, vaginal bleeding may not occur. So this you have to keep in mind. Sometimes you won't see the bleeding, excessive bleeding outside the vagina, but there would be bleeding inside somewhere, which is causing the hemodynamic instability. So you have to go ahead with your ultrasounds and CT scans to confirm the diagnosis, along with the continuous fetal monitoring. So if you go ahead with your continuous fetal monitoring, what you have to look out for, you have to look out for any abnormal fetal heart rates, repetitive decelerations, absence of accelerations, and frequent uterine activities. This all correlate with fetal decompensation. That somewhere fetal circulation or there is some fetal hypoxia which is happening, due to which we see various changes on fetal cardiac monitoring. Now, going ahead with the adjuncts of primary survey, we have to get a bedside chest x-rays, our fast scans, continuous fetal heart rate monitoring, vitals monitoring, and you have to always keep in mind that we can perform any indicated radiographic studies because benefits certainly outweighs the potential risk to the fetus. Going ahead with our secondary survey. Secondary survey includes the systemic examination that we have covered in previous lectures. That is your HENT, your chest, your abdomens, your pelvis, your genitalia, your peripheries, your back, your spine region. That covers your systemic examination. It would remain same in a pregnant patient as in your normal trauma patients, non-pregnant trauma patients. But you have to remember 2-3 things. That is, evaluation of perineum includes formal pelvic exam, the presence of amniotic fluid in vagina, evidenced by a pH of greater than 4.5, suggests ruptured chorioamniotic membrane. Repeated vaginal examination should be avoided definitely. There's a small topic which we should cover in a pregnancy trauma patient, that is Clear-Bettke test, which it is a test which is a maternal blood serum allowing detection of fetal RBCs in maternal blood. Although a positive KB test indicates feto-maternal hemorrhage, but a negative test does not exclude minor degrees of feto-maternal hemorrhage that are capable of isoimmunizing the Rh negative mother. All pregnant Rh negative trauma patients should definitely receive Rh immunoglobulin therapy unless the injury is remote from the uterus, that is far away, that is isolated distal extremity injury. Otherwise, in all trauma patients, pregnancy Rh negative, they should receive Rh immunoglobulin therapy. Immunoglobulin therapy should be instituted within 72 hours of injury. So I have made a small table in which I have tried to cover a few things, that is vital signs and labs. That vital sign, what is important, other the management and everything remains the same, but the position is of most important key in a pregnancy trauma patient. That is, you have to keep the patient in a left lateral position. For hypertension, definitely it remains the same. You have to cover your IV fluids, your blood products. Definitely remember fetal uterine monitoring. More than 20 weeks of pregnancy, initiate as soon as possible, along with the obstetrician consult, that is a gynecologist consult, is definitely required. If there is any vaginal bleeding, you should go ahead with your Rh immunoglobulins in a negative patient, IV fluids, and gynec consult. In labs, in addition to your usual trauma labs, CBC definitely is required you have to keep in mind about the low hematocrit in a pregnancy patient. You have to get a type screen to know the Rh negative patient so that you can go ahead with your Rh immunoglobulin therapy. Coagulation profiles, INR, your PPTTs, fibrin degradation, and fibrinogen. We can go back and remember that there were raised levels of fibrinogen in a pregnant patient, which is a physiological change. Lastly, we're going to talk about the perimortem cesarean section, which is a very important topic and needs to be covered here. Perimortem cesarean section, it is an emergency surgical procedure performed on a pregnant woman in a cardiac arrest. It is performed if a woman is pregnant with a palpable uterus and preferably within 4 to 5 minutes of cardiac arrest. It can be within 10 to 15, but the chances of survival of the fetus definitely decreases as the time passes by. It is preferably within 4 to 5 minutes of cardiac arrest. And sometimes it is also said that fetus should be 24 weeks, the uterus will be 3 to 4 centimeter above the umbilicus. So vertical incision is preferred from the zipper to pubis. Then a vertical incision is made in the uterus to deliver the baby. So we go ahead with our perimortem cesarean section. One is definitely to take the baby out and to relieve the pressure from the IVC. It also improves ventilation, and along with the attempt to save the baby by delivering as soon as possible after the cardiac arrest, that is within 4 to 5 minutes. And definitely we should remember that now we'll have two patients, one is the mother and the fetus. Then extensive care and the teamwork is required here. So most of the things which are covered in a trauma pregnancy we have covered. One is your lateral positioning, second is your definitely again your IV fluids and blood products, your RH typing, so you can go ahead with your RH immunoglobulins. And another thing is your physiological changes, your lab variations, and your perimortem cesarean section. These few things we have to keep in mind when we are dealing with the trauma pregnancy patients. Other things definitely remain the same. You have to go ahead normally how you go about in a trauma protocol, but these 4-5 things you cannot miss in a pregnancy patient. This perimortem cesarean section is a very, very important topic and a very important thing to be kept in mind when you have a cardiac arrest pregnant trauma patient. You have to prepare for the delivery of the baby as soon as your patient arrives, and you know that the patient is coming to you through ambulance, or you get a call, or you see that patient is just getting wheeled in from the door. You should, along with the management of the trauma patient, you should keep in mind that you could have to go ahead with perimortem cesarean section. So we have covered almost, I hope, everything. And if we have left with anything, you are welcome to ask any questions, any suggestions. And so this was a brief presentation about management of a pregnancy trauma patient. Thank you.